All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys can hear me all right. Thanks for tuning in on this fine Saturday morning. Hope everybody's doing okay. I've got some good stuff to go over today. Going to start with news updates, things I found on the internet this past week. And then we're going to go into a little bit of the black hack that I have played. So if the video and audio is off sync, do yourself a favor and refresh. Sometimes that's all it takes. Not sure why it's doing that. Maybe wait till it catches up. Hold on a second, I'll wait till it catches up. All right, how about now? AK Rise. So good morning to, looks like Blake, Joe, Nubis, Victor. Appreciate it. Joe, I'll hit you up on that hat later. I am interested in that. So one of the drawbacks is if I create a lot of merchandise, and it'd probably be in my best interest to order a sample for each, but even the samples aren't overly cheap. I'd probably spend like, I don't know, $200 maybe. And I know I've gotten some feedback, who's provided some feedback on a lot of shirts that he's purchased. And I think what happens is, even if I change the type of shirt the printing is on, the Teespring, what I use, may change the shirt later. Like they may just say, oh, this shirt isn't any good, and remove it anyway. And then I've already changed it. So if they're really terrible, I would go back. But Aaron, good to see you. Morning. So shall we get started? Let's get this potty started. Shall we? The first thing, going to start off with, hey Zwiefer, Roger, announcing the Kickstarter Community Advisory Council. So I don't know if you guys had seen this. Kickstarter, I think this is in response to all the hubbub about them going to using blockchain, and a separate platform was announced. It must have been a couple months now. Went over it on the stream to talk a little bit about it. But with that blockchain, there's mention of crypto, and so the community was quite up in arms. So anyways, they talk about the community here being at the heart of Kickstarter. It's all about this. And the interesting thing about it, I don't know what your take on this is. So maybe I'll just go to this article here, this announcement, is they mention how the community has always been at the heart of what Kickstarter is all about. So this is leading towards Kickstarter's role-playing games being its 500-pound gorilla. Again, unless this has changed in the last 5 years, my understanding is RPGs do really, really well for Kickstarter. So whereas some of the other ones, maybe it's product. I mean, the belt I'm wearing, I got off of Kickstarter, not ironically enough, but the belt I'm wearing got off Kickstarter. So I've purchased some products that aren't RPG related from Kickstarter. I have a iPad that's not sitting in front of me that has a stand I got from there. So they obviously don't fund as often, or they fund, but they don't make as much money than the RPG space does. We should be proud to know that some of these RPGs that are kickstarting now are hitting hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars for things that are like, $1,000 goal. So it's becoming, it's a great resource, I think, for RPGs, although it's not without its flaws and people's, like many things in RPGs, people are going to find reasons to hate the shit out of it. So anyways, this is probably in direct response to that, because I think if it were like normal products, they probably wouldn't have that leverage because it's based on a product. So for example, my belt, if the people that did this belt Kickstarter did, say, $1 million Kickstarter or $5 million Kickstarter, and they were done, and maybe they put out another belt or a wallet or something like that, and that does, $1 million. That is probably one group, right? It's probably one company that's putting that out. That company could be 10, 20, 50 people, who knows? And they put it out and it's great. And if they have complaints, it's those 10, 20, 50 people that are going to bring it to Kickstarter's attention, whatever. The customer of the belt and those things, there's different dynamics. Our hobby, I've said this to some people, and whether you agree or not, it's weird. It's just weird. I don't know how else to put it. And I say that because if it's an RPG piece, right, it's maybe a single individual doing a Kickstarter that's making tens of thousands of dollars, $1 million, hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever it is. And the community turnout for those is really what, like, if the community isn't a fan of Kickstarter, or the person kicking it isn't a fan of Kickstarter, I guess you could say this for the same, like, this is the belt makers. But I don't think the connection from the consumer to the belt maker, the consumer to Kickstarter, really cares as much as RPG people in the RPG community. We could be very loud, I guess. What have you. So I think, my take is just not even getting into the weeds of this press release and initiative by Kickstarter is based on some of the RPG community being what it is, should I say. So it says, we want the ethos of this kind of open, constructive collaboration to be more deeply ingrained in how we work with the Kickstarter community. So I think when you get loud voices that are like, Kickstarter sucks, we don't want to do Kickstarter, they're going into blockchain, I'm anti-blockchain, blockchain is bad, crypto is bad, we're going to move off of that platform, then Kickstarter stops and says, whoa, wait, hold on a second. Okay, let's address this. Let's do, what can we do to bridge the gap of this fallout, so to speak. So they're developing new ways to be in touch with creators more directly and more regularly, so that they can better understand the challenges of bringing creative work into the world and more proactively shape the future of crowdfunding and creativity. So there isn't any mention of just RPGs in this press release. And it's probably not the sole purpose for this Kickstarter Community Advisory Council. But I have to say, as huge consumers and contributors to the platform, we're probably assumed to be obviously in this lump, or we've had an impact on having them choose to do this. So the council will be made up of a diverse group of Kickstarter creators who are able to offer insight and expertise across the wide range of creative industries. There you go. And who can help us identify issues we may not be able to see on our own. Read maybe blockchain, maybe, just speculating here. Doesn't say it verbatim, but I don't know of any other controversies that's hit Kickstarter. Some would say fees, right? Like, oh, you guys charge too much and you take off too much and whatever, and that's ridiculous. Sure. They'll work with the council on prioritizing development of new features with a focus on ensuring that the platform is as useful, welcoming, and inclusive as it possibly can be. We'll rely on the council to give feedback on proposed solutions to user problems and to offer insights on how Kickstarter should show up in the public dialogue through our communication campaigns and policy advocacy work. So you can apply. You have to apply. They're looking, here's kind of the criteria. They're looking for creators. You submit your name as a candidate, or you could suggest someone else you think would be a great fit in order to be considered for the council. You must have run at least one Kickstarter campaign and be a Kickstarter account holder in good standing with an account that is at least 1 year old. So, not too terrible of criteria. Council members should be experienced in their fields, right? Understand what you're doing and have proven that. Passionate about Kickstarter and believers in our mission and charter. We want council members who will help us do what's best for our community. You would receive, as a council member, an honorarium of $5,000 per year in gratitude for the time and expertise they share. This is their way of making sure that if you are a volunteer, that they're not taking advantage of you and your time, which I would applaud, right? There was a time when people that ran D&D Adventures League or organized play, there was mention of, well, should those folks get paid? I don't know if it ever got resolved. It must have got swept underneath the carpet for a while. K-Rise says RPGs are opinionated. Sounds like a conspiracy theory to me. I know, K-Rise. Shocker. I hate to break the news to you, buddy, but maybe there's just a few in our hobby that have opinions. Yeah. And some are pretty reasonable, I think. Some, I don't know, maybe a little over the top. Matthew, good to see you. Kelly, you'll meet over video, or potentially in person, as conditions allow, 6 times per year for 2 hours per meeting. So you're looking at 12 hours a year for $5,000. That's pretty nice. You must commit to being a part of the group for at least 1 year and must commit to attend all 6 meetings. So far, I like it. Like, okay, what are we looking for? What are we asking from them? Time commitment, obligation. What does that look like? The applications are due April 6th. And as of this recording, you have a little less than a month. And Kickstarter will make a public announcement about the council's members in late 2022. It doesn't say how many council members, I don't think, right? Didn't mention how many they were looking at. We hope you'll consider applying. Probably it's going to be based on who applies and what their role is in meeting some of the criteria. Like if you run 20 Kickstarters or if you run one, how much of an expert are you in your industry, etc. I'm guessing. So we hope you'll consider applying to be a part of this important group. We're looking forward to working closely with the members of the council to make Kickstarter the best it can be. And keep in mind, it did say diverse, so hopefully they just don't get all the people that have had $1 million Kickstarters. If somebody were from, like, say, Free League, who has done quite a few Kickstarters, and I think somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Kobold Press is probably up there as well. As far as RPGs goes, it may be where they have had the most success financially because they've run multiple Kickstarters. They've run there have been 6 figures or 7 figures or more. And hopefully they just, Kobold Press, yep. Free League, yep. I think they should be on there because of the impact that they make. At least I would want them on there because if I'm Kickstarter, because they're kind of our bread and butter. But I also hope that they look at some small publishers because there's other challenges that the small publishers face that the big boys might not. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I think it's not bad. The only thing I scratch my head at with some of these initiatives, and it seems, I don't know if it's the RPG hobby or the industry, but I think that if it was a company outside of this hobby, I don't know if Kickstarter could, again, Kickstarter's not mentioning specifically RPGs in this. They want many different industry related individual or different industries to partake in this. And I think it's good to understand the customer, but I find it's more of a thing. And maybe it's just the sign of the times where it's like, well, we want our customers or users of the platform to have a say. So we're going to create a council. We want to have more of them in the loop, where I think at least when I was growing up, good old capitalism could give a shit about what you really had to say, unless you bought a product and it was bad. I don't know if it's because we have the ability to expose that now, where we could put it out on the web and go, look at this freaking book I just bought. It's got a big old slash from it and nobody's contacted me. And then all of a sudden goes, oh, we don't want anybody to get up in arms. And then, I mean, hey, try to keep that on the down low. We'll fix it. Don't worry. So I don't know if that's what it is. It just, I get leveraging the dollar and not buying from a company that you don't like or support or don't believe in their ideals or whatever the reason is. You're the consumer. You vote with your buck. But is there just an acquiescing, pandering component to some of these things? And I don't think Kickstarter's doing it to do that necessarily. I think their motives are what they are. They want to make sure that the decisions they make, and I think, and it could be any decision that they choose to make could be just the decision they make. I think it's just hearing these I think what it is, just my take is, how can we be more in touch with the community that can wreak a lot of havoc for us? We're still going to do blockchain. We're still going to explore those other options. But why is everybody up in arms over it? How can we better explain it to them than a news release? Maybe we create a council. We'll get some feedback and understand that. Maybe it'll impact their direction, or who knows? I don't know. And I think it could be all over the place. There might be some of that. There might be some, hey, we heard you. We're going to stop it. We're going to cancel it because, NFTs, perfect example. NFTs, you want to open a Pandora's box on Twitter and RPGs, bring up, a company that's doing NFTs. Chaosium explored it, did a drop. People got up in arms in it. I guess there was a Reddit or a Discord where people were just going bonkers, and eventually Chaosium put out a release and said they were holding off on further NFTs. So they didn't say they were going to stop. They were just holding up or temporarily stopping them, right? Discontinuing them. And so is it to prevent those types of disasters? I'm sure, right? But anyways, I thought that was interesting. I don't know what your thoughts are. Nubis says, Kickstarter's been deadly for my wallet. I seriously need to lay off of it. Yeah, I think you're not without company, Nubis. And Blake says, or at least the illusion of a vote / democracy. Yeah. And frankly, you don't have a vote, honestly. Like, there's no mention of votes or anything. It's Kickstarter. My understanding, is that it's not doing the hyper growth that is usually wanted from venture capitalists. Now, I'm speculating on this. I thought it was in a news article where it's been good, but it's not like hyper growth as much. So they've made business decisions to do what it takes to kind of, because I think technically it may still be considered a startup, right? I don't know. Blake continues, maybe they want to get some notables on side to help argue their case. True. And I think there is, I don't want to blow this off as a bad idea or it's negative or there's ulterior motives. I mean, let's face it, if they can get folks from the community involved, they can at least get the understanding of what the community is voicing concern about in a way that's not Twitter rage. And then they can understand it better. And if they understand it better, they can either combat it better, right? They could say, oh, we hear your concerns. Let us explain to you what this means. Or maybe we can, what we thought we wanted to keep close to the chest, we'll provide that now, because if we don't, we're going to have anarchy on our hands. I don't know. So they still decide to go blockchain because it's the way that the business has to go and there's benefits to it, but the community doesn't know what that is because they don't elaborate, et cetera, et cetera. So it will be interesting to see how this pans out. I imagine applications due April 6th. They're probably going to take, I don't know, a month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know, to figure out who is on that council. I imagine, I don't know if they'll make it public necessarily, because if they do, then there's that out there. Like, why did they choose that person? Oh, they chose that company. Oh, figures, it's just they're all going to be shills. So if they keep it quiet, I think it may be better for them. But then somebody would say, well, what's the point in like making an open call and whatever. So gamers will have opinions about that. So there you go. Anyways, more to come on that stuff. Next one. I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you guys are fans of Faith No More. What is this? This. I want it all, but you can't have it. The Real Thing is an official Faith No More tabletop RPG inspired by the classic album. All right, rockers. So Faith No More has inspired an official tabletop RPG, the first in a planned series of 5 games inspired by the rock band's music. Any Faith No More fans out there? The Real Thing is a standalone RPG that draws direct inspiration from the 1989 release known for songs such as Epic, which is what I was just singing, if you're not familiar with it. Based on PBTA. Now, this is awesome. I love this, right? Gameplay is based on Powered by the Apocalypse system used in games including Monster of the Week, Avatar Legends. I don't know. How about Apocalypse World? Oh man, poor Vincent McGay Baker. They come up with such a great engine, and then they all their stuff is attributed to derivatives. Players roll 2 6-sided dice. We all know what PBTA involves. So, yeah, I guess Augie, stop clawing me like I'm a climbing tree. I don't know. I thought it was something interesting to put up there. The Real Thing introduces a new gameplay element, discoveries on top of its PBTA frame, and discoveries take the form of memories and realizations that drive player characters to better understand themselves through prompts from the narrator, the RPG's GM equivalent, and can also be triggered by a fail roll. Game's atmosphere is said to take inspiration from 1990s RPGs such as Vampire the Masquerade, the World of Darkness series, and offering up a grittier tone. Playable characters range from criminals and killers to artists and lovers and occupy a 90s setting with a focus on mystery and drama. The Real Thing with each chapter titled after a song from the album. I did not get into these guys as much. And I mean, that was my era, I guess, maybe. That's the era I grew up in. And I know Epic, that's the song. So, RPG story is built around the themes and concepts in the album, according to writer-designers Jason Ward, Jason Piercy, as well as those expressed in the Faith No More songs and albums. I didn't know the guys were big gamers, which is cool, I guess, or they've become big gamers, which I think is fantastic. The Real Thing will be the first release in a planned series of Faith No More RPGs, each based on a different album, subsequent zines, adapting Angel Dust, King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, Album of the Year, and Sol Invictus will follow on from the narrative threads and characters introduced in The Real Thing. And I got a square doggy because he's being a dink. Get out of there. Go on. Get. So, June is the Kickstarter for that. The print edition to follow in October. Queensryche. Operation Mindcrime, baby. You could do an RPG scenario of Operation Mindcrime. It's fantastic. One of my favorite Queensryche albums. It's when I first started getting into Queensryche. If you're not a fan of Queensryche, hey, sorry to hear that. No problem. All right. Moving on. Okay, here's one I know you guys have all been waiting for. Probably didn't even know this was happening. Critical Role announces 2 new shows. All right, you critters. It's including the previously teased spin-off of Exandria Unlimited and a new monthly talk show. So Exandria Unlimited Keimal will bring back cast members Robbie Damon, Amy Carrero, Anjali Bhimani, Abria Iyengar, and Matt Mercer for a new 2-part story featuring the Crown Keepers trying to pull off a casino heist. In addition to the returning cast, Erica Lindbeck will be joining the cast as a new character, and then the 2-part special will air on Thursday, March 31st, and Friday, April 1st on Critical Role's Twitch channel. The other one, the talk show that they refer to, is the series Four-Sided Dive. The show will feature a roundtable discussion between 4 guests, with one randomly chosen via the roll of a dice to serve as the tavern keeper responsible for guiding the discussion. The monthly show will also feature party games, including fan questions pulled from a Tower of Inquiry, which is basically a Jenga tower. Once the Tower of Inquiry comes crashing down, there will be serious consequences of some kind. And then the Four-Sided Dive will air the first Tuesday of every month, starting on April 5th. Fans can submit evergreen questions about the current campaign on Critical Role's website. This is off of comicbook.com, by the way. So, there you have it, Critical Role, folks. It mentions here that Critical Role has been relatively light on content, save for the weekly main series and the occasional one-shot. Of course, the show and its cast has been busy with the launch of Legend of Vox Machina, an animated series that you can get on Amazon that made like millions of dollars on Kickstarter. So, yeah, there you go. And if you're a critter, you probably already knew that. Like, Sean, duh. Nerds on Earth. 100 D&D Water Encounter ideas. 100 D&D Water Encounters to make the time fly while on the high seas. Get out of there, Augie. Get. Stay out of there. I'm going to give him some treats to get him out of my hair. I feel bad for my cat, Augie. He's strung out. He's on Temptations. It's not a good scene. I'm going to try to get him into rehab, but it might be tearing our family apart. That's all I'm saying. on to better things. So, 100, there they all are. So some examples. There's an entire civilization living out on a sprawling flotilla made of other ships, boats, and detritus. They are absolutely thriving out there with agriculture and everything they could ever need. Number 31, an island suddenly appears out of nowhere. Stop the boat. Living fish start raining from the sky. So just a kind of a sentence, couple sentences. Some of the cargo you're transporting mysteriously disappears. It couldn't have been thrown overboard, as you would have heard the splash. Where did it go? Yeah, it's pretty good. We'll have links to all this stuff down below. I don't know if you guys are all water encounter folks. Alex Kammer did Sea King's Malice, published by Frog God Games. I'm not a big water person myself. I ran Skull and Shackles, like the first scenario, and then I was kind of hung up after that. Yeah. Getting him on the ship to go somewhere, maybe some adventure there, but not a huge pirates guy. I think it could be fun, but I don't know. It's just not something that I've looked into all that much. Yeah, that's it. Reward the cat to stop him from annoying you. Victor, the struggle is real, man. He is, he, dude, I don't know what else to do. I'm an enabler. It's terrible. Robert, man, thought I was late. Yeah, man, 8 a.m. Central Time, buddy. Well, and keep in mind, yeah, the daylight savings time change. You haven't missed a bunch yet, though. So this one, I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. Let's see if I can pull this off. I don't know. It didn't really transfer very well into my notes. D&D players are showing off the most epic game rooms on TikTok. Yeah, you have no idea, Victor. You have no idea. This guy is yeah. Anyways, so here are some links that I can't pull up out of here, but allow me to pop over to my notes and see if I can. There is sound with some of these, but it's pretty low, and the videos are pretty small. Let's see if I can enlarge these so you can kind of see them. Going down the stairs. This is a secret room. I gave it away. Some of you guys might have seen these float around the internet. Pretty nice. So that was that one. Oh, now it's bigger. Go figure. Maybe that'll help. We all have our personal preferences, right? But it looks good. That'd be a fun place to play. I don't have any space. That's one thing that I just cannot get over in my current situation is my rooms are very small. So I would have to have nothing in this space here in order to accommodate the some of what is needed to pull these off. Can I make this loud? Here we go. D&D Tavern. The burning lanterns seem to be a theme. And I think some of this fake brick can be done really easy if you've got a smooth wall, you just go and buy it. And it works pretty well. Is my understanding. There are some of these videos that have narrative, but I don't think I have the sound piped the right way. So I'll have all these links in the down below in this video when it's done. So I think he's talking about how he put this particular table together and goes over some of the features. Cup holder, bottle opener, catches the caps, pencils, USB. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of the sunken in piece. Game hole has that too. Alex has let us play in the game hole, and looking down can be a good thing. Like the door, the rounded door. It's pretty cool. So not that it's specific to this one, but sometimes I wonder if they're just too polished, like our rooms, right? I mean, there's some are really super nice I've seen online. We all have probably come across those videos. And this guy, so he goes into a lot of, like, he's got a stream deck he'll pull up here in a second that deals with all the lights. So he's got some built-in automation. So you could put a button. At some point, he'll dim the lights. Spoilers. Oh, yeah, the steam from back behind the Game Master. You could press a button and that happens. It dims the lights, and then some of the figures are glow in the dark. I don't know if he's streaming necessarily. I don't see there was a light there, a key light. All right, so that one. Let's see. Again, those lanterns. Maybe I need to get one or two. Battery-powered candles. Klimt, I think, that art piece. The Embrace, I think it's called. There's some stones. I do question some of the decor in some of these. Like, I don't know if I would put the rug hanging on the wall, but that's just me. I think that was it for this one, yeah. Cool minis. I like those things out of the books. Not a huge fan of that thing. Yeah, so that's that one. It's kind of like that. There was a Gothic mansion, I think, that was online. That had like a coffin and some other ambiance. It's not my shtick. It's not me, but that's all right. the lockers in the corner. Like, it's kind of funny. The dog. Look at the dog go, "What's up, dog?" And he says, "Stay nerdy." So it's a pretty quick one for him. Probably like a TV set into that box on the table. Stay nerdy. So those are the ones I had for today, for this week. So there you go. If you got a cool setup you want to show off, let us know in the comments. I'd be interested to see what it's all about. They're an evolution, I think. I think if we, I know I would, if I were to start a game room, it's kind of like this setup that I have here. It started off, I should show you a picture of how this thing's, my first podcast setup. Yeah, you would laugh. It's so funny. It was like a folding, it wasn't even a folding table. It was like a folding half table. And then a mic on one side and a mic on another. And it was probably only like 3.5 feet wide, if that. Yeah, it was pretty hilarious. It was done like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So Quincy, hey, good to see you. I mean, these rooms seem to really target a specific genre. So if D&D is your forever game, it would be really rad. But being in a room with lanterns playing a sci-fi would be a bit odd. Yeah, I agree. Like, hey, come on over. We're going to play in the game room. We're going to play Knights Black Agents, and everything is like, I just walked into Old World Ye Tavern, right? Ye-N. Yeah, I don't know. Nubis says, I'm not into this extreme level of dungeon room pimping, but I'm jealous of anyone with a really nice table. Yeah. A nice table, for sure. Some nice chairs. Like, I think there's, obviously you work with what you got, and it could get pricey, for sure. Like, it all comes down to money. Like, you had a butt ton of money. Joe Manganiello's, I don't know if I had his on. No, I didn't. They had his listed, but it wasn't a huge tour. It was just the video that had been around where Joe's talking about how his wife was going to turn it into like a Pilates place when they moved into their $1 million mansion or whatever it is. And then he's like, no, I'm going to get into D&D and make it my game room. And it's got a long table and it seems really narrow, but I did put that in there because it was just more him talking than showing off the area. I didn't remember the game hole table being that much of a drop. Yeah, it's been a while, Joe. I don't think it's that deep either. But anyways, I wish I had the space physically. I just have small rooms in my place, and I'd always want a game room, and I would be like, if I moved, I'd be like, okay. And in America, we got basements, right? Some of them are finished and some aren't. And you could, put up walls, and it's always interesting too, where you're looking at the game room, and you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I see the motif that they're going for, and then they got drywall, for walls or something. It's like, you almost have to go all the way in, or just make it a nice room with a nice table, and maybe some like decent art, that's maybe hanging on the walls, like in frames, picture frames. Maybe it's the 3 Dragonlance book covers that are framed, one next to the other. Otherwise, it sometimes to me feels disjointed a little bit. Like, oh, I could see what they're clearly going for here, but it's just missing these few pieces. The Adam Seeker has a channel he streams. Oh, interesting. He's got crazy production values. Interesting. I'll have to maybe check them out. Blake says, definitely prefer being at a table versus sitting around on lounge chairs. People sloth out and tune out too much. Yeah. Adam Seeker's last one, he used a combo of miniatures, lighting, and a digital background to make a Kraken attack a ship. Interesting. Looked pretty intense. I can't imagine all the work he puts in. Yeah. It's fun stuff. I mean, these rooms seem to really target... Yeah, you already mentioned that, Quincy. Sorry. And then Victor says, I'd be tempted to theme a room for Star Wars. Yeah, I saw... I don't know if you guys have seen the Star Trek Bridge Theater. This is really cool. Somebody did. I have, I think, seen a Star Wars one, if I'm not mistaken. Can't remember. I just remember like the Star Wars posters, but it might have been the same Star Trek one leading into it, where they just had posters like in the hallway of their house. Home theaters, right? Aaron says, I'm happy with my setup and not specific to genre like Quincy points out. Sure. Aaron's got some pics he put out there, I think, at one point. That table, his new table. He got a new table recently. Hey, that bid to change D&D away from WotC and go digital, was there a follow-up response to that? Oh. I think you're talking about two different things, right, Blake? The investment group that's trying to spin Wizards off. I don't know. There's been an update on that. And then I think that's the one you're referring to, right? I don't know. I don't have any update on that yet. Roman lives. I would probably design my dream game room for comfort more than geek flair. Sure. Joe, I definitely want a game room for my mostly finished basement, but due to my son, it's trains now. Yeah. Someday. Do the Viking drinking hall look? Yeah. It's funny, like, hey, I have a house and I need to make it look like it was from a medieval tavern. So don't make it look better, make it look rougher. I have to take money to put like wooden planks on the floor. And oh, by the way, I don't want them to be even. Because, that goes, let's put in vinyl flooring. Like, but it's smooth. Like, why would you find smooth floors in an inn, and definitely a bar. Booze gives me great comfort. Aaron says mine has and continues to be a work in progress. Totally, for sure. Like you say, comfort, as Roman says, is pretty good. But next on the list for replacement, good chairs are not cheap. None of it is. Like if you do a really, decent game room, I mean, you got to do it in phases, right? Unless you're just got a butt ton of money, or you're like, I just took out a home equity loan for $50,000 to put in this cool room. The tables all have a similar theme. I saw one guy put together, he's like, I make stuff, I can't remember what it's called on YouTube, makes all kinds of things, and he decided to do a game table. And it was cool and interesting because it was fairly straightforward. It wasn't too complex, and it's still, and it was putting an LCD into the top of it. No, actually what he did was he used, I think it was sponsored by LG, because they had a projector that they just released, like the 4K, 10 by 8 foot projector. Like you could put on a screen, it'll give you a 10 feet wide, 8 foot high screen in 4K. And what he did was he made the table, and then I 3D printed a thing that you could mount, I think, a mirror on. So you could just take that and flip it up in front of the projector. So then it would project down onto the table. And then when you didn't want it on the table, you would just move this thing and it would project on the wall. Tables are cool, but there's a theme to some of them, right? Like cup holder, trays, sunken in, maybe a TV, maybe not. I don't know if I would go that far. Like I'm a tech nerd, but I don't know if I would want the LCD TV mounted and then put the miniatures on top of it. The projector is a little weird because the projector projects down, and so you put figures down. Then it's projected over the top of the figures, kind of, so you get some weird kind of shadow thing going on. And it's got to be dark enough. I don't know. They're nice. Would I balk at getting one? No, if somebody wanted to give me one, for sure. But I don't know what it would look like. My buddy Doc's, I loved, his was not like game room. He had a big basement, and at one end of it was kind of like oven, sink, fridge. So kind of a kitchen area-ish. And the nice thing about Doc's is he had a high table. Like he had a high top. That was probably, I'm a 5'10" guy. And the table was probably right above my waist. And you'd have kind of bar stool chairs, height, where you could rest your feet on. And that would be the table. So you could stand and play, and everybody could do that. Or you could sit and play. So I like that high top look, actually, where instead of sitting down and then you got to get up or reach over, I don't know. And you get a solid wood table, man, it is not cheap. And I can't imagine what they are now with inflation and supply and all that stuff. Even making one's going to cost you a lot of money. And the thing is, you want to do it with really good wood or solid wood, or you want to do it in a way, because you start using that plywood stuff, it's going to warp, especially if you put it in like a basement where moisture changes. Like it's just wacky. So I can admire a good game room because I don't have one. So I don't know. This is my game room now, I guess. Okay, Rise Booze is a RPG lubricant. Billiard table with the top on. Yeah, there's a method. Here's the thing, like I would say, for a game table, for Sean's requirements, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Sean, we make game tables, we want to build you one, what would you be looking for in your game table? And the first thing I would say is it's got to be where if you sit down at it, you're not going to rack your knees on anything. I don't care where you sit. If I sit at the table, whether I'm at the game master, at the head of the table, side of the table, and I'm a player, like even Game Hole Con's table, they got these things that come down and you could put your books in. If you frickin' pivot the wrong way, wham, you're frickin' racking your knee on that thing. So that's got to go. I don't know about trays, like the pull-out trays. I'm not a fan of keyboard trays. Like it's just, for some reason, I guess if they're done really well, but they just seem like you're pulling a cutting board out of your side of your table, and then how sturdy are they? And I would almost want to maybe do a cutout cubby, or just not have them at all. Like just have the player be able to have that in front of them. Maybe it's just a lower spot. And then maybe have the table at a certain height, like the whole thing. I don't know if I'm a big sunken in table kind of guy necessarily. But as a game master, one of the videos that I showed you today with, I think the last one, where you had the slots with the books that you could put in. Those are probably pretty handy if you just pull out a book right next to it. Why is my wife up so early? Holy cow, 9 o'clock. I think something's going on. I might have to boogie. Or she's turning up the heat, maybe? Don't you like how my life, just commentary my life here? And up back to bed, I guess. All right. Anyways, game tables, game rooms. If you had a great game room and it's comfortable, fantastic. What do I also want to talk about? Main topic. Main topic today that I wanted to share with you was my experience with the Black Hack. And I don't know if I can. What's going on? Is she coming? Shh, everybody be quiet. She might not know I'm down here. No. The Black Hack. Anybody play it? Thoughts? What'd you like about it? What you didn't like about it? Are you familiar with it? Have you heard of it? The Black Hack. The Black Hack. Hack in the Black. The Black Hack. And I lost where'd my chat? Uh-oh, I closed my chat. That's no good. I can bring you guys back up. What am I doing? How do I know what you guys are saying? So this past Thursday was typically the Forbidden Lands game, but we were down a player. So Wayne, clever name Wayne, I don't know if you're in the chat, Wayne, said, hey, I'll run the Black Hack. And we're like, fantastic, dude. Sounds great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it. And it's not like necessarily a review, but more sharing how Wayne came up with the one shot. And we'll touch a little bit on the mechanics of the Black Hack just to kind of give you an overview because I think it's kind of important. We'll see where it goes, right? Adam says the usage die is awesome. Yeah. The usage die, well, I'll touch on that. I'll probably forget about it, but if I forget, let them remind me. Orcus. Yeah. Blake says played it, solid book. Nubis, Black Hack is at customs right now. It's on my list for this year. Awesome. Nubis says got the box set. Nice. Roman says it's very smooth to run, and my group had a lot of fun with our tryout. So and I think this also goes back to, I'm going to get a soda quick. Hold on a second. Ugh. All right. I start running and the weather gets nicer. I'm going to have to get rid of this bad habit. So the Black Hack, if you're not familiar with it, is by, shocker, David Black. So it's comprehensive rules light old fantasy role-playing game. Featuring a DIY homebrew of original era fantasy gaming and modern game design theory. Some of the credits, all the thanks. And anyone who I know on the internet. So if you know him on the internet, you got credit in the book. Looks like it was copyright 2018. And to kind of tee this up, so what I was going to say before I got distracted is that I think there is a missing component with game mastering, right? How does one learn or become a better game master? And, you know, I mentioned this before, you can watch videos, you can listen to podcasts, but it still brings maybe a certain height of anxiety to people that are trying game mastering. Maybe they game master for a while and they still get a little anxiety, which I think is natural and normal. And people that have game mastered for 10, 20 years still can get anxiety to do it. Some have opinions on how it should be done, what games to run, how best to get into game mastering. The debate can go on. And as we pointed out at the top of the hour, some of us gamers have opinions. So I think one thing is you can watch actual plays and you can go, oh, okay, great. Matt Mercer's awesome. And, I can watch, I don't know, Jason Hobbs run OSE and low fantasy gaming and go, cool. That's cool. Okay. But I don't think you as a game master know what's going on in that person's brain at the time that they're running the game. And I think that's a component that's completely missing that could absolutely be leveraged. And I've mentioned the, mystery science theater 3000 approach to doing like a commentary to a live actual play. After last week's episode of Gaming and BS that we recorded live that I still have to get out today, as a matter of fact, at the end of that, Brett and I were talking, and he's kind of coming up. He's having a harder time coming up with interesting topics, or so what he thinks is interesting. And one of the things that we are toying around with, and has been mentioned, is doing a live play of an RPG, recording it with the commentary in real time. So we wouldn't record the live play and then do like the director DVD commentary piece. Brett would just simply talk into the mic and explain his thought pattern as it's coming to him in real time. So, he would talk to me, blah, 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 and then maybe get really close to the mic and say, I could see that Sean's getting really bored. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to inject like this one encounter to maybe spur some action. Okay, so I don't have this necessarily planned, and I'm just going to do this, right? And then he might say, and I don't have the statistics and, or the stat block in front of me, so I'm just going to kind of wing this piece. I'm going to base all the stats off of X or Y, or I know it by heart because I've run this thing 5 times. And by seeing that, there's a couple reasons I want to do that. One is so GMs can get some insight into the thought process a little bit, but also show that you don't need like a huge tome, and you don't need to adhere to everything that is written in that to pull things off to your players. So we'll see how it goes. That's kind of the plan. It might be just like a 1 2-hour session or 1 hour session. I don't know. And it may involve others. I don't know. It's still kind of being baked. So talking about the Black Hack today. Sure, I could sit down, I could do a review, much like other YouTubers, say, hey, here's the Black Hack, here's what's really unique about it, it's kind of cool, blah, blah, blah. You could go to Ben Milton's site, he probably talks about it, goes through page by page, talks about the artwork, all that. That's not really my intention through this today. It's what was my experience playing it the first time, and what did Wayne do to facilitate this one shot, kind of really off the cuff, and what kind of methods did he take to pull it off? And if somebody can go, oh, okay, that totally makes sense. And yeah, it really worked well. Many ways to do things in role-playing games. Your mileage may vary. Okay, should go without saying. So the first thing that he had us do was he was using the It's Not My Fault deck, or a kind of components of that. If you're not familiar with the It's Not My Fault deck, I'll put a link in the chat. You can kind of look into it, but there's some other tools that you can use to kind of generate situations, scenarios that will start the creative juices flowing. And I find I want to explore more of these tools than buying the big tome adventure, or even the zine adventure, right? Zine adventures are probably pretty cool because they're pretty short and brief. They're not too dense. So maybe not the best example, but I'm much rather wanting to come up with specific situations that I could put the player characters in and then just kind of let them do whatever they need to get out of them or solve the problem, versus, well, it's got to be done this way. And if here's these DCs, if they don't make these DCs, what's going to happen? Right? So having said that, he must have flipped 3 cards. Well, actually, he said, I need a D20 roll from each one of you, two D20 rolls. And let me know the results. And then he would, off of those rolls, give us 2 options each. And I'm not going to go through everything that was brought up. I will tell you the results and what we picked. So he would say, all right, Sean, you have this one and this one. Which one do you want to choose? So the results we came up with across the 3 of us was strapped to the altar of something best unnamed. The poison is already in your system. And they said it would all be forgotten if we succeeded. So those are the prompts. Those are the situations that we are assumed to be in. Once those are established, so I think mine was strapped to the altar of something best unnamed. I think Phil picked the poison is already in our system. And then Harrigan, I think they said it would all be forgotten if we succeeded. Okay. And I think the other one that Phil got was relatively mundane. Like he's like, that seems kind of boring. Let's go with the poison's already in your system. So thanks, Phil. And then after that was done, this is all through Discord, kind of throughout the day, on and off. The next one would be that he would say, Sean, we'd have to pick. He wanted us to pick characters. So he put up character sheets: cleric, warrior, thief, wizard. And I think that was all of them. And I thought I put, here we go. I'm going to bring those up. So he brought up these 4 or 5 character sheets, 4 character sheets, because he has cleric in here twice for some reason. And well, can I just, oh, that's fantastic. It doesn't get bigger than that. Oh, for Pete's sakes, I probably have to download it and then open it. You know what? I'm just going to do wizard, because I think I have this one. I think all of them are 1 sheet except the wizard. All right. So we had to pick character classes, and he gave us links to the drive. And once we had the character classes in place, or we chose, then what he did was he prompted us. Kind of the next thing was the wizard says why this is the warrior's fault. Okay, so when you start the paragraph, you should say, "This isn't my fault. It was the wizard's fault," and then frame things up. And then the warrior, and so that's done, and he did it one at a time. So once mine was done, then he would say, okay, the warrior says why this is the thief's fault. And then lastly, the thief explains why it's the warrior's fault. Okay. And now I talked to Wayne. He said I can share some of this. So thank you, Wayne, for allowing me to do this. Because I think it's pretty cool. I don't know if I could share this stuff, but nonetheless. So anyways, so here's kind of the Discord that was going on. I won't share all the info, but I want to get to some of the write-ups, which is probably way up here somewhere. Where did I get those? Oh, for Pete's sakes. I thought I had these marked. Sorry, guys. Here we go. I think I got it pinned. Did I pin it? No, I did not. And it's probably not even in this channel. Nope. Let me see if I can find it on the Gaming and BS Discord. Here's where I think everything is. Here's all my rolls. All right, so here's some of the details I think I got to find here. Strapped to the best. Okay, there we go. We established that. And some of us rolled. Like, what class do you want? 1d4. Boom. I rolled a 4. I pick wizard. The wizard says, so this is what I conveyed to as the prompt. So, and I didn't start it off right, so he gave me a free pass. But anyways, I said, in debt to One Eye was known to be a mistake. Shaking him and his thugs were never going to happen. He'd always track us down. And he did. Of course, he would forgive the debt if the warrior, thief, and I could retrieve the one object that must be worth a lot of gold. I had heard about the item. It was mentioned in one of the tomes in the Great Library. Of course, One Eye needed insurance, so he injected us with poison, and he has the antidote. Just retrieve the item, and he'll give us the antidote and forgive the debt. We traveled to the underground dwelling where insert thing resides. All was going well until the warrior touched something he shouldn't have. Made a great racket, and now we find ourselves strapped to an altar as a sacrifice to some unknown horde beast. So that's how it kicked off. He liked the concept of bringing up One Eye, which is interesting. So you would think like, oh, One Eye, he's probably got a patch over an eye, or he's missing an eye. And the way Wayne did it was he had an eye tattooed on the back of his bald head. And it was rumored that he could see, from, behind his back with that eye. I thought it was kind of a nice touch. He elaborates, feel free to add details. So he wanted Harrigan and explain why the current situation is really the thief's fault. So Harrigan played the warrior. Now it's, why is it Phil's the thief's fault? Feel free to add details, setting info, names, expanding upon the setup that I wrote. Try not to outright contradict, though you could certainly describe your PC's interpretation. You may focus on the backstory and or what immediately happened before we set the scene. Please start your statement with, it's not my fault. Now, context-wise, Wayne has used this method at a dinner table. He said, like, we'll start having dinner and everybody will want to play. So I will start this process. We'll eat dinner. And then after dinner's done, I will have all this done in an idea to present to the players and the group. So Harrigan comes up. No, it's not my fault. I never touched nothing. I never made no noise. Was the thief, you see? Him there, the ugly one? He screwed up royally, is what I think. Set off some fiendish trap when he tried to open that door with his little jangly picks. I'm just standing, minding me own beeswax next to that statue of the naked lady with the scimitars when it just topples over. Just falls and smashes on the floor. I never touched a thing. What's worse is that I think that's One Eye's sorcery-loving former missus we seen earlier when we was being tied up. To one with the little demon what rides on her shoulder. Now, I didn't read Harrigan's feedback over in detail, and when we were playing and we brought up this woman, and the imp that was flying around near her shoulder and things of that nature, I didn't realize that Harrigan had come up with that, which was kind of a shortcoming of my own lack of attention. So far, this is kind of funny. Okay, so there you go. More of the scene that is set. Now it's Phil's turn as the thief. Please start your statement with, it's not my fault, and say why it is the wizard's fault. It's not my fault that the fool wizard ended up in debt to One Eye for that stupid scroll. The wizard claimed they only needed more time to unlock its secrets in the Great Library, but they weren't making any progress. Our time was up, and we had no way to pay the debt. So One Eye sent us on a suicide quest to retrieve some item, a black opal, the Eye of the Kraken, it was called. It's rumored to see other places other times. Sounds like a bunch of fanciful garbage to me, and if we failed to find it and bring it to him, we'd be dead. Of course, we botched the job. The wizard never dispelled the glyph on the floor. It went off, scarring the warrior who stumbled right into a statue, knocking it over, alerting these beastmen to our presence in this godforsaken dungeon. Now we're to be sacrificed as part of a demonic ritual. The gods only know its true purpose. At the end of the day, this whole thing is a pissing contest between One Eye and his ex-lover, Shadaza, the withered hand, and we're caught in the middle of it. Bollocks, I say. Worst thing is, I'm going to end up dying with these two Muppets. So Harrigan replies, I think that's a wrap for the story. Do we even need to play? Right? So, and then Wayne goes to say, yes, you all win the black hack. So fantastic, right? Now, Wayne, Phil, myself, Harrigan have all game mastered before. Not that matters. It's just, we know we got to put some things out there. And whenever, like Phil has run Mothership for us in these certain situations where we're down a player, and Phil's like, I'll run Mothership for you guys. And we'll make up characters, takes like 3 minutes, and he'll run Ypsilon 14. And there can be, as many of you may or may not know, there could be a difference when you have game masters at the table as players. It could be really bad, or it could be really good. There may be some in the middle too, but you run into game masters that, that's not how I would run it, or hey, this isn't the right rules, or whatever the case is. So that may be more on the bad end of things. But on the other end, if you get game masters that feed the players as previous game masters can feed the current game master ideas, go with the flow, even retcon. We mentioned like retconning in an episode of Gaming and BS, or just saying, hey, this is what happens. You know what? I got a better idea. If you want to go with it, can I interject? Well, sure. How about this happens? And then the whole group goes, ooh, that's, yeah, let's go with that one. That's better. I don't know. Let's stick with this. And everybody kind of puts up their hands and goes, okay, sounds good, right? Whatever the decision's made, you go with it. So I think when you experience that at the table, it could be a really good thing, especially if you're running a one-shot. So maybe not so much for a campaign or anything, but last week I talked about running a kind of best practices for a one-shot. And Wayne's approach to making this game happen, I was very impressed with Wayne and how he did it. It's not his first time in how he's done this. We all kind of picked the black hack, and we all agreed upon that. Wayne could have simply just said, hey, I'm going to run the black hack and let's kick this off, right? So all of us were like, yeah, okay, great. It was more of a mutual consideration than anything. So we have all that set up, and then Wayne's kind of got to come together and maybe tie it up and say, well, where are we and how do we get out of it? And then where do we go from there? But as a game master, a lot of the heavy lifting, he doesn't have to pick up an adventure. He could rely on something he's previously run. And, I think like Brett's probably run, one of the Avalon adventures that he's written, and he probably knows it really, really well. The name escapes me at the moment, but he could probably run that off the cuff every time, anytime he wants to run with somebody. The only trick is if Brett runs that and somebody else in the group's already played it. He may tweak it enough where you might not know it, but that's one pitfall of running the same scenario over and over, like me, and forget about it. People probably know what's going to be coming at some point if it hasn't been sprung on them already. Iron Shoes. Thanks, Blake. So sets the scene. Then we go in, and when we start the evening, we have to do character creation. So we didn't complete character creation ahead of time. He was all right with that. And so that's what we did when we first sat down. So he's got this info he's already set into motion. He's kind of set the scenes, so to speak. Got the NPCs, the MacGuffin. Fantastic, right? He's probably got an idea of where we're going to start and then what may or may not happen based on our actions. And then he's probably going to kind of go from there. And he's probably got 2 or 3 rooms, so to speak, in his mind that he'll be able to convey to us. And that's kind of what happens on his end a little bit later in the game. So let's get into character generation of the Black Hack. And I did have those things written down. That's fantastic. So what he did was come up with these, it's like a playbook. Now, these aren't inherent to Black Hack. Wayne actually created these, and they're fantastic. If I was Mr. Black, I would try to implement something like this. I bring up the wizard because this is the one I'm familiar with. This is the guy I played. Now, my character here isn't filled in. This is just the sheet, obviously. But what he did was he had 3 attribute arrays, okay? One was heroic, one was mediocre, I guess, and then one was another set of array. And in that array, I said, well, do we have to put them in order, or can we change it, put them in where we need to? And he's like, basically we're using assigning attributes or assigning numbers to attributes. We didn't roll. So of course, being the wizard, my strengths were intelligence and wisdom. I think Dex was up there. I think my strength was like a 7. And then I think my charisma was a dump stat. So strength and charisma were dump stats. And then my con was the 3rd lowest, maybe. Maybe my charisma was higher than my con. Typical wizard, right? So you assign your attributes. If you notice on the character sheet, in the attributes, there's a maximum and a current. There's no modifier. So in the Black Hack, if you're not familiar with it, it's a roll a d20, roll underneath your attribute. That's what a test is. Okay. Roll under. D20 roll under. The next thing we had to do was roll hit points. So Wayne was going to have us start out at 2nd level. So we created the character and then we leveled up. And for hit points for a wizard, it starts right here. Current, hit points starting 1d4. I rolled a 2. If you are a wizard and you will roll a 1 for hit points, right, when you first start, up here, which is called Arcane Fortune, you can see kind of way over there. If you roll a 1 for starting hit points, generate a random magical item from page 114, 115 as part of either of the starting equipment choices. And I'm like, okay, awesome. I didn't roll a 1, but I got a 2. Again, no modifier. I rolled a 2 on a 1d4. That's it. Like, I don't get a bonus for having an awesome constitution. And then level hit dice. Obviously, we're level 1. Also, I should also point out, that he also had this reference doc that he was keeping notes in as we were going along. So you'll notice, if I blow this up a little bit, these are the prompts he's filling in. Where are you now? What brought you to this? And how it's about to get worse. And those were the choices we made. The wizard story, the fighter story, he puts those in there. Bolds kind of the key things, like, it's not my fault. Who's saying this? The statue of the naked lady, one eye, a little demon with the one woman. Eye of the Kraken is the item. So he's highlighting and bolding those components. He lists the adventurers next. So he's like, who are you playing, Sean? I'm like, I'm Risus the Wise. I'm the wizard. He typed that in there. Harrigan's going to play the warrior. Basil is his name. And then Agi Stiggerson is the thief, and that's Phil. He puts in the resources like, hey, you're going to need a pencil, dice, scratch paper, character sheets with a link to the playbooks, copy of the Black Hack, and St. Patty's Libation, which is optional because we played on St. Patrick's Day. He goes through character creation right here as kind of an outline. It says, look at the class right up in the book. It references all the page numbers for the specific classes. So we're kind of going through this, and at least me, going through this and the character sheet at the same time. So kind of a nice guide. And again, I asked Wayne, hey man, can I share this? Is this cool? And he's like, yeah, by all means. So assign one of the arrays below. So here's the arrays I was talking to. Heroic, Savant, and Everyman. And obviously with Heroic, you get 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Savant, you're at a 15, 12, 12, 10, 7, 7. That's the one I picked. And then Everyman is like 12, 11, 11, 10, 10, 9. Okay. In any order you wish. Make up a background. So see page 117 for guidance and inspiration. So my background for the character I made was that, I don't have it created, was that he traveled, had done research and traveled and was a member of the Great Council of Tarthus. Whatever that means. But you can use that as a game master to lean on that and say, because you are a member of the Council of Tarthus, you know this person, or you have this knowledge because being on the council, you have access to the great library, and you being the wizard have done research, blah, 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 blah. Great stuff as a game master to just get your game master brain and come up with something creative, tying it to the player's background. And the background is literally just a sentence. There is a table on page 17 of the book that helps you kind of come up with how to come up with a background. It's hard to link to. If this was just linked, I could pick, hey, click this to go to page 17. So here's using character's background. Here's a D12 you could roll for inspiration for the background. Raised as a poor street child, escaped being held prisoner, won freedom through valor, reputation ruined by vices, sold to a wizard as a child, things of that nature. Come up with your own. Being raised up to brother chaplain in the 11th region taught me all I need to know about tactical warfare and death. Once spent a summer in Yvish hunting the Black Banner, made a lot of enemies, tracked down most of them, killed them. Right? So proper nouns, establishing things in the setting, great for a one-shot, alleviating a huge load off of the game master. That's the point of some of this. And the reason I'm going through this is to show folks like, here's some of the things that you can use as a game master to leverage a game where you don't have to do all the godforsaken prep that we seem to put ourselves on, or put on ourselves, I should say. So next thing, get your initial equipment. So in the Black Hack, it says see page numbers for each class above. Each class has one or more unique items. Don't forget that. So in the Black Hack, when you talk about the character sheet, you can, oh my gosh, this just is not Sean streaming smoothly enough. That is not, where is my character sheet? That is not, I gotta move all these windows. Gotta crash. Take care, all. See you, Blake. Thanks for dropping in, buddy. Okay. So going back here, on the items here, and what he does with the playbook, he puts some of these notes in there so you don't have to kind of reference the book necessarily, but it makes it easier. Inventory. A character may carry a number of items equal to their strength, and circle it below. So it's kind of like list your items, and then if you're carrying it, circle it. And if they equal to your strength, then you're not encumbered. So carrying more items than their strength means you are encumbered, and all attribute tests are taken with disadvantage. So obviously with the Black Hack, the theme is kind of like an OSR approach, shall I say, but yet using still some modern components to it. And one of them is advantage and disadvantage. So it has roll under, but it still has advantage and disadvantage. Fantastic, great, easy, simple, straightforward. Characters simply cannot carry a number of items more than double their strength. So there's the limitations on encumbrance. Easy, simple to manage, number of items. So I went through, and as you go through creating your character, you can pick bundles, right? Like you pick your bundle pack. You could pick this option or that option, and then you can note them on the items. See you, Matthew. So that's what I did. And then I circled them. And then you see here on the sheet, probably right behind my head, the UD. This is what it says right above my head. UD, which is usage die. And as a drop down, and you could select D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20. This is my understanding that like Forbidden Lands is usage die and things of that nature spurred from the Black Hack. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but nonetheless, that's what I had heard. So what happens is if you have a consumable, then you have a usage die. And on a usage die, again, I mentioned this, similar to like Forbidden Lands games like Forbidden Lands, if you roll a 2 or a 1, your usage die goes down. So if you are a D6 in water and you roll a 1, now you're on a D4 to roll. The difference is from Forbidden Lands and the Black Hack is Forbidden Lands doesn't go as low as a D4. They just go as low as a D6. But it's easy whenever a consumable is used that you just roll the die and see if you run out or not. So you're not ticking things off. You're not keeping track of that inventory and the nitty-gritty details. You know, if it's arrows or water or food, torches, things of that nature at the end. And also I don't know if you can do this. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. So you could probably make that roll at a disadvantage. So have the person roll twice and see what happens. Say, for example, they used the torch and they went through water. How many torches are actually available after you use the one or what have you? So pretty neat. People are big on usage dice. I think it's great, easy to manage. It's not hard to understand. So there you go. So continuing on with the reference sheet here we go. Okay. Yes, that's me. Go away. Pop up. Got to make the background, get your initial equipment, grab a couple packs, put it on here, make sure you're not encumbered. Roll first level hit points, pretty straightforward for each different class, level up. So leveling up at that point, use the rules under gaining a new level, and you go through that procedure. So the next thing is you roll your hit dice again. Mine was a D4, I rolled a 4. So I had 6 hit points for a second level wizard. Not too shabby. You also go through your attributes down the line and you roll a D20. And if you roll over your attribute, it goes up. But is it really you? I don't know. You increase your attribute by 1 point. So for the first 3 attributes, I rolled all over them. So my strength increased, my dex increased, and then I think whatever was next on my sheet increased, and then the rest did not. Neat mechanic. Obviously, the higher you go, the harder it is to roll over it. But a neat kind of little mechanic I thought was pretty cool. And then the next thing was special items. So one PC may have this in their pack, which is a flask of healing he gave us. Usage die 6. So again, flask of healing has a usage die. So anything you want to have the party be maybe multiple items or, again, a consumable, just put a usage die on it. He could have gave us flask of healing usage die 4. So you could scale that. And then obviously with the flask of healing, it says regains 1 hit die per 1 hit point, or 1 hit die plus 1 hit point up to their maximum value. So my interpretation of that is you roll one of your hit dice. So for me, wizard, it'd be 1d4 and then plus 1. And I gain that in healing if I consume one of those flasks of healing. The warrior would get obsidian sharpening stone. Agi would get the thief. Risus, the wizard. What he gave me was I could pick 2 more spells. And that was, I think, much of was that a call by his? It might have been just going up to 2nd level. So I ended up with 6 spells that I knew that were in my spell book. And I think it was 6. Because I had 2 per level. 4, and then he gave me an extra 2, 6. Math is hard. The way spell casting works in the Black Hack is you can memorize 2 spells, or up to the level that you have, I think is what it was, if I'm not mistaken. So I could memorize 2 spells. Mine was Magic Missile and Shield, and then the other 4 spells that I created or memorized were more, I think, utility spells. And I'll tell you why I picked the 2 I did is because you can cast the ones you memorize kind of on the fly. So, hey, it's your go. What do? I cast Magic Missile. Boom, it goes off. I cast Shield. Boom, it goes off. There's no casting time necessarily. Everything else requires you to read from your spell book, which takes time. So you can cast the other spells, but you have to read from your book. So my thinking was, if I need something in the moment, I'm going to pick the ones that I need in those urgent moments. Also in the book, it doesn't say that you can't memorize the same spell more than once. So having said that, when you cast a spell, you roll your attribute. In my case, it's intelligence. You'd make an intelligence test. You have to roll under your score, plus or minus your level, or you add 1 to the die. I can't remember. If you succeed, you retain that spell. You don't lose it. In some of the old school books, D&D, cast spell, it's gone. Not in the Black Hack. You got a chance of still retaining it. So I could hold on to Magic Missile indefinitely if I keep making those rolls. The tricky part is if you roll, you've rolled that once and succeeded. The next time you roll, you make the same test at a disadvantage until you lose it. Pretty neat. I like it. It doesn't you don't have like 3 or 4 cantrips that you're always firing off as a wizard, but you also aren't a one-trick pony where you fire the one Magic Missile and you're done for the whole 8-hour session until you guys rest. And you have those backup spells that you can read from. And those are, I think, similar in nature where you would read it and then you'd have to make the same rolls to make sure that you can get them off. Neat in that case. I'm not going to get into the thief and the fighter or the cleric and some of those details, but just giving you some nuance. So anyways, he goes into kind of the story so far. So the wizard gets into debt to One Eye, a crime lord in this port city of Rasht for the secret scroll. One Eye gives them a mission to retrieve an item for him, the Eye of Kraken, from a dungeon outside of town beneath the haunted cliffs of Morn. As insurance, One Eye gives the PCs a slow-acting poison. He holds the antidote. PCs were given a map to a secret entrance to the dungeon. It takes them from a concealed entrance near a standing stone on the cliffs down a long, steep staircase. They exit out into a stone hall with an arched roof. The halls are dark, though glowing orbs fitted irregularly into the walls, and ceilings provide dim illumination. The map takes them into a high-ceilinged room decorated in garish blue, yellow, and green tiles, as if the room was far beneath the waves. Statues of merwomen armed with swords guarded a vault door. Through various misadventures, they fail to get the vault open and are discovered and apprehended by beastmen. Humanoids with heads of frogs, turtles, and fish. Some have limbs that end in suckered tentacles. Others have extra tentacle limbs protruding from their bodies. The beastmen giggle and croak as they bear the PCs down ramps and into a round room. There they strip them of their weapons and packs, tossing those unceremoniously onto the ground. The fighter catches sight of Shadaza, One-Eye's ex, issuing commands to the beastmen. So he's incorporating some of the things that we had come up with, obviously, and then filling in the details of how we got to where we are. The PCs are bound and gagged with ropes, which feel more like living seaweed or tendon, and placed on an altar formed with a huge oyster shell, 15 feet across. Shadaza speaks to you. Fools, I have seen you loitering about the docks near One-Eye's ship. This map is the one I gave him. So, One-Eye thought to send his minions to try and steal the Eye of the Kraken. For that, you all deserve something special. I will use your souls to open the Eye of the Kraken and destroy One-Eye once and for all for his treachery. So she's got a little chip on her shoulder against One-Eye. And while she does this, an imp appears on her shoulder, again going to what Harrigan substantiated, and mimics his mistress's gestures and speech. And then the beastmen shout and gibber, flailing arms and tentacles in some demonic genuflection. And then Shadaza barks at some beastmen. You three stand guard here. Bring them to the tide pools for the ritual when I call. The rest of you follow me. I will prepare for the ritual. They leave, closing the door. And again, he's taken a lot of the bold text and implementing some of that from what we had established, or what he finds important. They leave, closing the door, and after a few minutes, the beastmen in the room fall to plundering your packs. Also, you don't feel so good. Maybe the poison is starting to act, or it could be the imminent death. And literally, that's the start of the adventure. So, one of the things the thief has is unlimited daggers or something of that effect. So literally, the tagline is you always have a dagger. It's like standard. So of course, while we're tied up, Phil's character, Agi, pulls out a dagger and proceeds to kind of hide him trying to get loose and cutting his seaweed or binds. And then of course we escape. Spoilers. We escape, and then we take out some of the beastmen, and then we make ourselves down to a path. He's given us a couple path choices. We were in this room. We know where the vault is, but we need to find Shadaza and then get the Eye of the Kraken and open up the vault and do all this stuff. So, a couple battles ensued. None of us died, but there was a part where there was a pond, kind of a cavern, and something came out of there. Like, my memory is so fuzzy, but I didn't want to get into too much of the adventure. This isn't like, hey, tell us about your character, tell us about your adventure. But I was very impressed with how these prompts and these cards could come up with ideas for a game master, and then you take it into a document and you kind of put it in here, and I mean, this is what, 2 pages, 4 pages, 3.5, maybe. Yeah. 3.5 pages in length. And some of it is just, hey, here's some of the things that you need to cater to for your character and generation. And we played, for context, We started at 7:30, did PC Gen, and went through a scenario at the end, and it could continue. How do we go back to One Eye in the poison and deliver that? Shadaza, whatever happened to her, and things of that nature. So, hey, we could continue to play. And we did that all from 7:30 to 10:30, I think. So 3 hours with PC Gen. And Wayne, as far as heavy lifting, he just had to give us some prompting. He has these playbooks. So going back to the playbook for Wizard and some of these, I didn't really even have to reference the rule book necessarily. He has the attack damage that's listed on here, which you cannot see because I'm not sharing. You have the attack damage, 1d6 or 1d4 if unarmed. You have the hindrances. So these are conditions: confused, distracted, paralyzed, slowed, stuck, weakened. And he tells you what those mean right on the play sheet or on the character sheet. Most have to do with, you can't move or take actions, or they're at advantage or disadvantage for attribute tests. And they are going to be different for each character. I think the thief and the warrior have like one sheet. I have two because I have spells on the spell book. So here I could check off what spells I know. A second level, so I could go all the way up to second level and pick anything up to that point. And then it tells you what the spell does. So magic missile, a far away or distant target takes 1d6 damage for each of the spellcaster's levels. So there isn't a casting time, right? There isn't necessarily a duration that's said. Some of these might, right? Detect Magic says last d6 minutes. So that's a usage dice. So you even use usage dice for Detect Magic and spells, which I thought was clever. I should also comment. So what's the big thing in RPGs that seems to come up all the time is combat, and it's usually a good thing to understand what that encompasses, because you got the role play part. There might be roles, there may not, but when the rubber hits the road in some of these fantasy RPGs, it's a big deal when combat starts. And so how does combat run? So for the Black Hack, as some of you might know, you roll under your dex for initiative. If you've succeeded, you go before the NPCs. If you do not, then the NPCs go before you. That is in any order. Okay, I believe, right? Distances, there's close, nearby, far away, and distant. Those are the range increments, okay? So nice that way. No 10 feet, no 30 feet. Spells are measured in that. Everything nearby. Again, Detect Magic. Everything nearby that is magic glows. A lot of nearbys. Magic Missile, far away or distant target. How far are they? How far are they away? Oh, they're far away. Okay, I could do that. Magic Missile, boom. Right? Defense. So there is a defense roll. And defending is a thing. So you can opt to defend, and you roll, depending on what you're defending. If you're defending a melee, it's strength. So you roll under your strength test, and that's how you defend. If it's missile, then it's dex. So if you're attacking with a bow, you have to make a dex test. If you're going to defend, you make a dex. The opposing person makes a dex check. Okay, and you resolve that appropriately. So if the person misses, no need in defending. But if they do, then you roll your defense if you want the applicable defense test: strength or strength for melee, dex for missile. Armor. There is an armor value in the Black Hack. So for the wizard, I was wearing wizard robes and armor value of 1. Okay. Since obviously the back and forth doesn't have to do with an armor class target number necessarily, how does armor value come into play? And that is, you can have multiple items provide armor value, but they do not stack. So you take the highest one. So for example, if I wore something like a hat with an armor value of 1 and my armor was an armor value of 2, I can use that armor. And what happens is if you fail to defend, you fail that defense check, then you can take an armor die and put that aside and consider that piece of that item broken or damaged. So if it's an armor value 2, you take that to that armor and subtract it from the damage you take. So 4 points of damage. I have armor. I'm going to set my 2 armor value dice aside, and that's going to absorb it and break it, but I only take 2 points of damage. Broken armor can be fixed, but it can't be used in that combat again until it's fixed. So you can try to fix it. That also requires a test and some time. Critical hits, they exist. So if a hit on a die test is a 1, or the other person's defense is a 20, you do double damage. So for example, I do a test. It's not a crit to hit, but the defender rolls a 20. In defending, that's still a critical hit for me as the attacker, and that's double damage. Smooth, easy. One thing that I have noticed also, which is kind of this weird 5e thing that I was not wholly aware of, that some of you had heard be debated, where it's like, it's not pass failure because you can actually succeed with a setback even when you fail a skill check in 5th edition. In the Black Hack, an advantage or disadvantage, the GM can choose what the result is on a disadvantage check. So if you roll disadvantage, the GM. So if you roll advantage, the player gets to choose the result. Pretty straightforward. I want to pick in this case, the lowest, because I'm trying to roll under everything. But if I roll disadvantage, then the GM gets to choose. But they get to choose. It's not an automatic failure necessarily, which I think might be something, that people may overlook or forget, which I thought was interesting because I didn't read through the Black Hack all in depth. But when I brought that up and I was kind of going through the combat piece, if there's a disadvantage roll, kind of as a overall theme of the game master gets to choose. It's not always, you roll disadvantage, you always take the lowest, or in this case, the highest, because it would be rolling over. Interesting take. I think that kind of sums up my experience with the Black Hack and a one-shot adventure using the It's Not My Fault cards. I'm curious to know if any of you have used some of those card type methods. Maybe it's random tables. Maybe you have something that you've devised on your own that have come up with those kind of points that would allow you to come up with a situation or a scenario on the fly with your player characters. And if you haven't done that, or it's something you know of, because I don't think this is completely unheard of, would you be willing to do that, take that kind of those steps and choose that method to do a one shot or kick off a game smoothly enough? Because I think it's not something where you can just have them do and then you're going to be ready right out of the gate. But I think it's going to get you into a particular place, put the players in a particular situation. Why is it not your fault, but this person's fault? Why is it, and those connections, taking that, and basically you're sourcing the table for those ideas. It is from Fate, but I think, and I don't I think also that Wayne modifies it, but the inspiration is from that Fate deck, right? So if you go on drive-through and you buy that product, that's what it's from. I think he has it modified maybe just by numbers or what have you. But there's other tools that are out there that are similar in nature, that I think maybe instead of buying the huge module or the big adventure, and memorizing some of that or whatever, coming up with those ideas, sourcing the table, going, okay, because then it's going to make it almost pretty much unique every time you play. And then how does that go from there? And with Wayne, I think he mentions using this at dinner, with friends, and then doing all this at the beginning and then eating dinner. And as he's eating dinner, he's coming up with these thoughts, jotting down, and then, hey, let's play, make up some characters. Takes like a hot 5 minutes to do. And then let's roll with this. So, okay, got everything I need. Let's put it in a little write-up, or he puts it down on a piece of paper, notepad. He's like, okay, you guys are located here. This is what you're facing. This is kind of the issue. We had a sense of urgency because we were poisoned. We had an objective. We had known characters. We've used proper nouns. So we've established setting pieces, and all of which Wayne really didn't have to come up with any, is kind of the theme of this whole thing. I think it's fantastic. Some game masters can really pull this off, because then what happens is, okay, you got these pieces. Now where does it go? Well, their guys are going to probably have to escape. Where are they going to escape to? They're probably going to want to try to go get the MacGuffin. They know they're in the lair of this area. They're going to run into these beastmen that are kind of obviously derived from sea creatures. The big bad that we fought was like this big, huge, giant sea enemy. Long tentacles and things of that nature. Yeah. There you go. See where this is going? See where it's been? Nubis says, I don't hate cantrips, but I really hate 5e style ritual casting. Most of the time, the 10-minute casting time has no consequence, so a relatively powerful spell can be cast for free. I like the Black Hacks way. Yeah. And going back to that, Nubis, so say, for example, I got to detect magic. Well, hopefully I'm not doing that in the middle of combat, right? So of course I'm going to use it in my spell book. I'll just read it and then go from there. So some of those utility spells can still be used. You can still take the time, and it's not going to take you 8 hours to do it, or 2 days or whatever. But it's not willy-nilly, and there's still a way to lose it. I don't know. I thought it was pretty unique, pretty decent. I kind of like this game. I mean, I've had it for some time. I've heard good things about it, and I haven't run it, but I can see how it's very relatively simple to make this happen. And frankly, Wayne's sheets, like these playbooks, are fantastic. Just fantastic. I don't need we get players that are like, what can I do? And they look at the character sheet, and it's, where do I get the answer? And I mean, there may be I gotta believe for 5th edition that there are some similar setups like this. But at the same time, there's probably a lot more different moving parts and pieces that may complicate things quite a bit. So trying to gather that all onto a character sheet in a way that you can easily kind of absorb may not always be overly intuitive, where the way the Black Hack is, and Wayne's organization of the character sheet, name, player, background, attributes, even casting spells. It says right here, a wizard may spend an action on their turn to cast a spell from memory. One action. Once the effects are resolved, the wizard should make an attribute test, adding the spell's level to the roll. Well, what's my attribute? It's intelligence. I have to roll under it. Yes. And then what level is the spell? First. Okay, great. If they have already cast the spell this attribute test is made with disadvantage. And if they fail, the spell is no longer memorized, then the wizard cannot cast the spell until they memorize it again. And then list the page for further reference, page 15. Gaining a new level, it says. Marking XP, my familiar. By the way, I forgot to mention Patsy, who was my 6-inch moon-faced man, was my familiar. I randomly rolled that. So, and I had him like not be able to talk. So he just kind of went around and go, point, you know. Fantastic. You know, inventory, carrying items and encumbrance. How does that work? Memorizing spells. Once per day, you can spend an hour memorizing a number of spells equal to their level with scrolls and books. A wizard can only memorize spells of levels up to and equal to their current level. So everything you need, even the hindrances, right, aka conditions, are all listed here and what happens. And it's just the elegance. But you have to have somebody go, hey, can you just look at your character sheet and read it and absorb it? And I go, okay, memorizing spell. How does that work? How casting spell? Let me see. It's like one thing right here that I have to read and kind of go, and I don't even have to memorize this. Okay, I think I kind of remember. I only did it once, so do I do it again? I'll just go, but just reference it right here. Casting spells. I don't have to go through, a 300-page tome. But again, it's kind of a compliment to Black Hack and also Wayne's method of coming up with this as a one shot, and using those cards. And you could use anything, right, to come up with those details. And there's not a lot to memorize, like armor value and how that works. Pretty simple. I don't know. Makes room for more story and things of that nature. So, Ty says, when are you going to just show how much better ICRPG is to a quick start game? I got to absorb that. ICRPG, I'm sure is great. I have it over here. Right up here. And I got to look into this because it may be just as elegant, but I don't know. The clockwise initiative, things of that nature. There's probably some great stuff in here. But again, I haven't played this, and I played the Black Hack. So there you go. I could do commentary on this, Ty, but I haven't played it or run it. So it's kind of like a review, right? Like, oh, here's the cool thing about it. But what I'm talking about from the Black Hacks, like actually playing the game. So we'll see. Maybe Ty wants to run Index RPG for me? Is that what you're saying, Ty? Rodell says, we use that initiative system for the most part. It saves me a lot of headaches and speeds things up. For sure. Also goes back to play-by-post. Like, it could be very easy, right? Like going back to Harrigan. I don't know if you guys watched that video that we did on this channel. If you haven't, check it out, play-by-post. If you're not interested in play-by-post, check it out anyway, because I asked you to. But no, in all seriousness, play-by-post, transactions he mentions, going back and forth, roll for initiative, okay, going in order. Well, what if that person's taking too long and the next person's waiting for that? You got to be able to just say your side wins, or, you have 3 slots that win or go before the monster who's filling those slots or whatever. You want to make it so that you can get more done in one die roll than to do die rolls and have it very limited, because then you're going back and forth with these transactions. So I do like the go before this. I think Low Fantasy Gaming does a certain similar piece, right? You have success, great success. Those determine whether you go before the big bad. You can only go ahead of the big bad. If it's a proper noun, like some would say, if it's like a wild card in Savage Worlds, you can go only before some of those if you have a great success on initiative. So it's actually harder. And a great success is like a certain percentage of your roll, I believe, or a certain range of your ability. So, yeah. Maybe not the same thing you're talking about. We have used the relationship thing from Dungeon World to set up how characters have connections, and that often can get the ball rolling, which is the bond I think you're referring to, Radalk. So in Dungeon World, they are known and have I don't know if I can definitively say that playbooks were derived strictly from Apocalypse World. Definitely a big part of PBTA games is the playbook. And Dungeon World was good at that. And what Radalk was talking about in Dungeon World is the bond piece. And you get XP if you have done something with that bond during the session. And then you can change that to something else. And so if you've achieved whatever's in the bond. So one example might be like the cleric who has names another player character in the party and says, if I can just convert them or see the error of their ways and convert them over to my deity, then great. Then my job here is done. So you fill that in there. And if you convert one of the player characters to see the error of their ways and follow your deity, then you can check off that bond and mark XP. So that creates great role-playing moments for sure. And he continues, it wasn't for Dungeon World, just stole that for our Fantasy Heartbreaker session. Nice. Ty says you could use the index card decks pictures from the ICRPG. Yeah. Nubis, I want those playbooks. Seriously, they look awesome. Nubis, Wayne from the Discord. So hit him up if you want to go in there and see if he's willing to part with those. Vardy, Nelson, good to see you, man. Was there a specific part of the story where you guys used the rules that made it shine? Curious how the game went. Yeah. The big one I thought was kind of cool was the dagger piece, like the thief always having a dagger. So it was like, I think there was one part where it was like getting obviously unstuck. I just pull out the dagger I have in my boot and my, hidden in my pants or hidden here, hidden there, put it in my, it's the thief that has always the hidden blade, right? So great, boom, pop that out. Go and fight somebody you don't have a weapon. I toss a dagger over to the warrior who may not have the sword. Boom, done. I cast the spell, magic missile at one of the guys, one of the baddies while we were in that kind of tied up area and we had to escape. So, I don't know if that's much there. There's a little grandstanding from Shadaza and, we had to get the Kraken, the eye of the Kraken and return it back to, One Eye. And it was good. So some of the details are, a lot happened in that short session, but it was good. Sorry if I can't elaborate further into detail. So I liked how smooth it was and how easy it was. Like it's just, I think with some games, if I were in your Castle Amber game, I'd be like, okay, how does that work again? And it's not that hard, right? You would just tell me like roll under this or roll under that, and it would be just fine. The disadvantage advantage piece does, I think, lead into not outright saying no. And one of the things that I think the nice thing about this game, without completely overanalyzing the snot out of it, is that there's no DC. Okay. You and I had been in a game, and you have, so in Kyle's Feng Shui game, if he's going to throw mooks minions into a hallway, he can determine the strength of those minions to some point, right? And say you're trying to hit them, you have, your sticks or your, combat die, and you roll. If the minions are too tough or the party sucks and is just botching rolls, yes, people can say, well, if you just suck at dice all the time, it can still lead to a great story. Yeah, it can, but it can also be very frustrating and not moving it forward. And that is kind of an arbitrary thing. Like it's, how do GMs in some target number games, DC specifically, come up with the number that they do? And some are right out of the book. Sometimes it says it right in the trap, whatever that is. So what happens if you fail and you don't get through that? And then you're like, oh, okay, go through this. Now, it's the same thing with the black hack, but I don't set the DC. The player or the GM doesn't. They could just do an attribute test. And some other games can do that as well. I'm not saying that black hack is the only game out there that's ever done this. How evolutionary. But at the same time, it takes off that burden off the game master. They can just ask for a test. They don't have to let me see. And if it is in the moment and they know it's like a dexterity check, because dex is having to do with how coordinated you are, obviously, they're going to be inherent. Like the thief's going to probably have a better dexterity than the wizard. So if there is a condition, then you just add the advantage or disadvantage. In DC games, if there's a condition, you got to futz with the DC. Or you can do advantage or disadvantage for sure. But that's the question, right? That's another thing that the game master has to come up with and consider. So I think, it's, and also some of this comes down just straight to preference. Like, I just like how this works. I like how it flows. The initiative helps out significantly. It doesn't, change, and it does from round or combat to combat, but it's who goes. Like, okay, you won. You two can go anytime, and then you got to go after the NPCs. The usage die helps. It's kind of like this. To me, it's almost like OSE, but with some things baked in to help a little bit. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it and explain it really well. But, spellcasting can be a freaking weird animal in some games. And I think that helps with this one. Sure, there's a little bit of a, hey, do you keep it or not? Okay, how does that work? But it's not that hard to understand. You do a test. So that's the one thing too, is when you're doing tests, it's always the attribute roll under on a D20, and it's modified by maybe your level or maybe advantage, disadvantage. And it's kind of the theme for a lot of things that you have to kind of do. Defend, attack. There's no modifiers. So there's not that math piece. Like my buddy Jeff, I love him to death, but in a 5e game, man, that guy he's trying to solve like atomic physics equations when he's rolling dice. And it's like, dude, if he were to play this game and he were to play the warrior, maybe some weird paladin offshoot, and I said, okay, every time you're going to attack somebody, if it's melee, it's always strength, and it's always roll under. Always. Period. End of discussion. Match the numbers. You got a 17 strength. Did you roll under or not? That's it. There's no +2. There's no +5 to your weapon. Maybe later down the road that occurs. I don't know, with magical weapons and the black hack. But man, he's like, add smite, add the weapon, magical weapon bonus. Let's see, I'm X-Ying this, I'm flanking, some of those can just bog down stuff. And now you'd say, well, why doesn't Jeff just like add up all the pluses and put it on his sheet? And I'd ask you the same question. I don't know why. But with a system like this, and I know there's older school games that kind of mimic this, and I think that's kind of the point of it, right? It's like to give you kind of that old school feel, get to the story, don't get bogged down with a ton of mechanics, make them pretty smooth and easy to do. And, a lot of people run, that's OSE, right? You can roll under the attribute. It's that simple. Preaching to the choir here. I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry. But I don't know if that helps. Ty says, I will run you ICRPG. All right, buddy. Did Dungeon World playbooks come out before or after Black Hack? I believe Dungeon World was done before the Black Hack, if I'm not mistaken. Ty's running a hex crawl using ICRPG. I hope what's going on. I hope it's going well, man. Nubis, I would be very interested in how you're approaching that. Yeah. I think he's saying that to Ty. Rodelic, I've seen people complain about the initiative thing because they say, what if you have a really fast monster or NPC attacking? Well, then they roll initiative with disadvantage. Yeah, let's not complicate things too much. Or, it's like, I don't know. Maybe the monster's really fast, but I don't know. One could say, well, they're not strong, or, because then you're dealing with, I don't know. I think you're going to find fault or somebody that nitpicks certain systems all the time, for sure. A lot of people are going to hate this game. Totally hate it. They're going to hate every ounce of it. I can't stand this, can't stand that, don't roll under. Ugh, it's a D20. All over the place. That's what we do. That's what we do as gamers, right? We have our preferences. It's not going to be for everybody. I liked it. Would I run it? Sure. Would I run a campaign of it? I don't know. Part of me is also like, there's, I don't know, thousands of fantasy RPGs out there. But I do like the approach that he had with it. Yeah. In regards to ICRPG, you got to go back to Hank's original YouTube stuff. He literally crafted rooms with foam and made video game style scenarios to overcome. It's a very video gaming, at least the origins. Hank is all about high intensity. He hates boring parts of RPGs. Interesting, as time went on, he's come around to OSR and is all in on OSE right now. Interesting. Yeah, and we change too. We change our preferences and what we want out of games. Like I'm talking to a lot of people now. Alex Kammer is a huge 5e guy, and he's like, he's now into Free League, all deep end, and he's just wanting more time to tell, like get into narrative and role playing, and not get bogged down with what he would define as crunch to him. And I think many of us maybe have that same journey, right? Like it's, again, people are going to love it or not. They're going to have a particular preference. You could still roll dice. It's not a complete story game. There's still a game master that's kind of doing rulings over rules and things of that nature, or even following the rules per the book. It's still kind of true to this fantasy RPG genre and what it's trying to accomplish. It's not too wacky crazy. There's people that'll be like, Dungeon World, I don't get it at all. Like, what's this, 10 to 12, 7 to 9, and then below, how does that work? Fail forward, +1 forward. There's, yeah. Could put all these toe to toe, right? Ty says, for ICRPG on YouTube, Kane's Kiln does some very nice walkthrough videos and AP videos. An ICRPG does a target number, and if you explain it well on what you want to do, the GM can drop the target number by 3. Or if they want it tougher, raise it by 3. Is it always 3? Could they do 2? Could they do 1? Could they do more? Ty always hit the target or higher. But so I don't know the target number. or is it fixed? Like target numbers in Savage Worlds for melee is always 4. No, ranged is always 4. Otherwise, it's a parry the hell is it? I don't remember. Anyways, if you hit above target number, add a d12 dice for effect damage. Yeah, thanks, Nelson. Murder Hobo Show, good to see you. And ICRPG do run around the table still. I had to change that to everyone gets a turn, but the order isn't around the table. I didn't like landing on the cleric at a locked door. And the thief was 2 turns away. Also around the table seemed to kill any role playing. So you're talking about like, okay, you roll and then you always do clockwise. Yeah, I understand what they're trying to do, but I would hate to have the same order every time. I would much rather do the slots like Star Wars, or something similar to that, like, or even Black Hack. Like, how many wins did your side have? How many losses? Slide them all in, right? And anybody can go during that slot. All right, see you, Victor. Yes, always 3. Got it. Fix for the room you're in. Riddell says, we've run games with a lot of younger people new to RPGs. I've found as long as the system doesn't get in the way, it works and they come back for more. Yeah, but what is that though? What does that mean? Like, how does it get in the way? Is it complication? Is it math? Is it, different subsystems to do different things? So you're doing a skill check is one way, and then you do combat a different way, right? And then you do a grapple another way. Like, what does that all look like? And I think that's some of the beauty of these games where you're doing the same thing over. Like, a test is a test and it's always an attribute test. Well, how's an attribute test? You roll a d20 and it's always under. Period. End of discussion. Oh, well, what if I do combat? Same thing. What if I want to check a lock? Same thing. Oh. Huh. But the thing is, when you do it that way, then you start to get into like a generalization, right? So if you get the thief, well, then they're going to be good at thiefy things, and dexterity is going to be higher, and everything that's dexterity related, they're just going to be better at. And for most of us, we'll be like, that makes sense. For others, well, sure, but could I get like, I don't know, could I pick a lock if I had thieves' tools, but I'm a fighter? Maybe. Would you be that good at it? I don't know. Murder Hobo Show, the scene number is always displayed on the table. You can always start simple and add complexity later, for sure. I've gone to popcorn turn order. Oh, okay. I know that's another piece, right? Quincy Jackson, I find myself wanting to spend more time with narrative and story and less time with deciphering resolutions. Yeah, man, for sure, Quincy. I'm totally with you. And I think there's a movement there. And some of us may never get there or never want to do that. And that's perfectly fine. But that's, I think that's fun. Now, there is a whole camp that is all about like positioning and tactics and line of sight and cover and, maximizing that. And maybe that tends to be more concrete to them. And it's, very much a leveraging everything that you can to overcome the problem, like lowering the risk significantly. And that's what your goal is. So if you got a target number, or you're trying to establish a target number, you're trying to establish it as high as you can. If you're at an armor class and you're a warrior, you want that thing to be like AC 30 in, descending, or ascending armor classes, right? So I don't want anybody to be able to hit me. Like, GM rolls, what's your AC? 30. Roll again. Shit, 30. Roll. Never hitting a guy. Which is strange Because in order to get a higher dex, usually you're putting on more armor. So it doesn't make you easier to duck and dodge. But somebody, no, Sean, it's kind of abstracted, right? It's like HP and armor is abstracted. So he's, they're probably taking dings and dangs onto the armor, but it's not damaging them. But it never damages their armor either. Like, so, then you could get into, well, what's realistic? What's simulationist? And I really want that, I want that in my game. And how do you get a game to do that? So anyways, Riddell says, if they get bogged down and confused, it halts play. That's what you're talking about as it relates to your comment above. Is the system getting in the way? So that's what Riddell's saying. If they get bogged down and confused and halts play, that's the system getting in the way. Yeah. There's professional game masters. I think I saw a video of professional game master, and they're like, what game do you run? And he was like, it was almost like a modified 5e, where it was like no skills, just attributes. Like it looked like a basic D&D character sheet. And why does he do that? Because he's probably running for folks that aren't, playing RPGs for 10 years, or they are, but they're like, well, how do you run your game? And then he has to kind of, puke all these methods and, subsystems and modifiers and situations. And if you get into something that's really like boiled down to something very simplistic, and you say, look at the kids. You ever get not an infant, but you get a very young child into RPGs, man, they might not even know how to count, like, or recognize the numbers on a D20 if they're young enough. But you tell them, here, you just throw this little object, and then off the results of that, we'll come up with something. And that's all they do is just roll one die. Like, which way do you go? If you're not sure, just roll this. And then we interpret that. And parents, mothers and fathers that do that, and they run their kids through some of those games. I mean, I haven't run No Thank You Evil. But even just like, hey, we're going to play a game. You want to play a game? Yeah. Let's tell you play a game. How do you play, Dad or Mom? Well, we're going to sit down and, you got to draw what you look like first. Oh, okay. And they draw up some scribble on a piece of paper, and, they go, this is where my hair is and whatever. Like, here, coming from a guy who has no kids. But anyways, it's just like, okay, Johnny, Sally, you roll this little cube, and if it comes up with this is what happens. Everything else is good. Okay, sounds good. And that's it. Like, that's the whole thing. That's the mechanic. Roll that, and I'll let you know when you need to. Okay. Boom, bam, done. Ty says, I flip back and forth between ICP, RPG, and Fate if I want more story style. Okay. I've played Fate Accelerated, but not Fate. Riddell, simple at first. I give them a set of dice with an extra D20 of another color. Roll that one with the different color. Roll high is good. We build from there. Murder Hobo Show, Sean, you have ICRPG now, don't you? I do. I thought I saw you tweet about it. It's right here. I just held it up. You probably weren't here. So, yep, I grabbed it. I got to go through it. I started on it. Haven't gone through it. I'm a guy, like, I could buy all these rule books. I can read them and go, oh, it's cool. I mean, I just had this one. This one, Brett and I are going to go over on next Monday. I'm going to talk about that. So that's for research. I'm not going to pull that one out. And then, but I'm a guy that's like, get me in the game. Let me experience the game and understand it when it hits the table. The dynamics, the initiative, the attacks, like how does that, how does story come out of that or does not, or how fast things go. Like, spent, 2 hours on combat. Why? Why did that happen? Was it because the scale, right? Because the monster had 500 hit points and the max you could do is 3 every round, and multiply that by 4 players. So you're doing 12 per round, and every round has to go around, 5 people. And so you just multiply that, and that's why. Or, some of those things, and people love that. I mean, like I said, there's no wrong way to play necessarily, or the style of play, or the type of game that you want, or the type of game you prefer. But there's like these pieces come into our preferences. And I think many of us are starting to want to get away from, not combat, because I think combat and conflict is good, obviously. Even if it's social conflict, how do you resolve it? How quick is it? But it's really kind of the suspense of the game, the clues, unraveling the mystery, understanding who you're up against. It's some of those things. Like, when you think of a role-playing game moment, what do you bring up? Like, what is so fantastic about that? It could be like that one die roll. The odds are against you. You had to roll a 20 and you did. And boom, one crushing blow, last blow, yay. And it was the last person of the party standing. Great, fantastic, awesome end to a great campaign or session. Super. But even before it got there, the journey of getting there and understanding, like, where did you guys start? How long did you play? Was it a year? Was it a month? How did it go? What did you run into? What was interesting? Like, we talk about these weird little tales about, like, getting stuck on the beach and somebody losing their fishing pole, and then it's all misery, and they ran out of food and water, and they had to go to the goblins because if they didn't, they were going to starve to death. Excitement? Some would say, like, that doesn't seem that exciting. But when you're in the moment, you're like, shit, man, this is kind of a freaking big deal. I don't know. I think I guess the lesson here is we all get certain things out of role-playing games, and they may all be completely, entirely different from one another. But in the end, it's kind of got to fill a niche of being fun. It's got to hit a fun point for everybody at the table. And meshing is a big freaking deal, man. God, who is it on our Discord recently where it was just like they were just having a bad day with the game group because they have a player that's like, perception 20, what do I see? Not being prompted and just doing that. And it was kind of irking them. And they're kind of venting. And I think it's okay. It's okay to vent. It's fine. But it is really we're at a point in our lives, some of us, where I was just talking to Wayne, Phil, and Harrigan right after the Black Hack about, hey, Wayne, thanks for running this. Really awesome. Glad you dropped everything and was able to come up with this. I had a good time. And God, where was I going with this? You could just see my thought leave my brain. Well, I know. And then we have bad experiences in the hobby. However you define those. And there are sometimes people in our game group or who we're playing with, or it's the game master or whatever it is, or maybe it's the one shot at the con. And it's just like, I signed up for this. It's 4 hours. You're never, ever going to get those 4 hours back. So it's kind of a crapshoot. Like, that's why some people are like, oh, I see this person's on the roster. I'm going to sign up for their games because they're always fun or always interesting. I know their style. Even at cons. Like, I used to do that. Michael Brown, he's the guy I've talked about who dress up as Gene Simmons to run Catastrophe Marvel TSR. And you played the members of KISS, the rock band, kind of like Phantom of the Park. Sorry. But I would play because he'd put on this big production. It was a production value. And the games weren't overly complicated. It was all kind of like, it was like the experience that you wanted to have. Like he did the Nightmare on Sesame Street, D20 Call of Cthulhu. And, Spoilers, Elmo was crazy and like was a mass murderer. And everybody had to talk out of their hand puppets, and the character sheets were done in like crayon. It's like a fun experience, and we know when it's not fun. And so when you get somebody in your game group and it's not even, here's the deal. I've recruited for, over 10 years. We used to have a saying that said there's a butt for every seat. And it's true. You could come across the person that has like the most abhorrent, personality, just a shitty attitude, but they will land a job and they will get paid well. Somehow. Same with gamers. You could have a really bad game master, but they could game for GM for another group, and there could be 3, 4, 5, 6 people that think they're the best game master ever. Like, I'm trying to think, maybe that's what's happening to me right now. But then they go and run a game at a con, or they run something from a Discord, or somebody else experiences that same game master, and they could be like, that guy or woman is the worst game master I've ever come across. So it's not a matter of it's maybe not even a matter of are they good or bad? How do we define that? As much as saying we don't mesh. Our styles don't mesh. You're trying to do this. I'd like that. Hey, let's call it a day and say that it's just not my preference. The way your preferences aren't the same as mine. You do your thing. I'm going to go do mine. No love loss. Blah. Now, somebody's going to go, damn it, Sean, I know a bad game master when I see one. And there are some shortcomings with individuals that maybe they can hone in on their craft and make it a little bit better. I think there's always room for improvement no matter what those preferences are. But it's hard to tell people, like, just leave the group, go find a Discord, try a one shot at a con, see if those folks are playing. You could play virtually online. So there was a kind of this thread on Twitter the other day. So I have a video on this channel, did of low fantasy gaming. There's a comment, you can go and see it. And they said, they say it's gritty, but they don't even roll 3d6 down the line. So to that person, gritty is 3d6 down the line and living with it. And so that kind of being, there was this person online who was kind of saying like, they were tearing Fate, I think, apart, and they did it on a Reddit, and they were just leaning into it and saying how terrible of a game it was. Okay, great. It's not for you, but it was just, and it's floating around, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And the person who was kind of putting it out there was like, look, I know people don't like some games, but this is like, and it was a long paragraph. And I think it was in response to literally a video. I don't think even it was a Reddit comment. It was like somebody took a page. It would have taken them 5-10 minutes to type up if they could just spew it out there and put it out in one go without actually editing it. Like, you guys got a long time to just like, this thing sucks and this is why. Drigo, I saw you slide in, John. Good to see you. Murhobo, I was just thinking about dropping him, honestly. He hasn't done anything for 2 or 3 months, and I signed up for ICRPG, not the other stuff. I'm just reading some of the comments, guys. Sorry. Morning. No podcast. Hank is streaming on YouTube. Hat style, something like this. Such a jack of all trades. Used to do much crafting, then drawing, streams, then rules, philosophy, then dungeon. Yeah. Dubbing off. Why was there a slight delay? I'm sorry. try John refreshing. Sometimes that helps. I'm not sure. I've got no drop frames, and my kilobits per second's right around 4,500. So I don't know why that happens, but it might be the latency that I have set down. So I don't know if that's playing a role in it. Anyways, life's too short to play with players, and I'm struggling with this myself. I really am, guys. I just absolutely love, they're brothers to me. I've known them for a long time, and I love playing with those guys. But there are some things that just utterly, completely just drive me absolutely nuts. And if they watch this video, they'll probably be like, screw off, Sean. But like, I'll say, hey, we're going to play in May. You guys got a game that you want to play? Crickets. Hey, did you guys see the message above? Oh, yeah. Let's play Star Wars. Okay. Is everybody on board? Looks like one person responded. That's like, I get really excited to play with the guys, and then I'm like, they aren't responding like at all. Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm texting you. How is it getting lost? So for my own sanity, will that be enough for me to go, like, I can't play with these guys if they're never, ever going to get back to me in a timely fashion? So that's one of the things. It's not even the table. It's not even a play style. And I struggle with that because I want to really play with them. So I either have to come to I just have to go, hey, they just don't, look at their messages, and I just got to poke them 3 or 4 or 5 times. And that's just the way it is. Or I just got to hang it up. And it's always bothered me. So yeah, play styles, man. It's also outside of the table. But so anyways, the Twitter thing, I forgot. One of the things somebody brought up was, if they don't like something, then they should just go find a different game. It's not that, it's not that hard. And somebody responded, is it? Is it that easy just to go and find another game? I don't know. I'm not so sure that's the case for everybody. Was a comment. And I'm like, to me, that is being short-sighted. Like, sure, is there a person with no internet somewhere, or their internet's really crappy and there's no friendly local game store, and they are literally on the most isolated part of this planet? Sure. But those odds are pretty low. So just whipping that out and saying, I don't know if that's necessarily true. It's never been easier. Never. Currently, it is the easiest. It is the time, this time and place is the easiest to find other gamers. Is it easy to find a good group? No, not necessarily, but, play one shot. If it goes well, hey, you guys looking for another player? I could really use a good game. We are on the Gaming and BS Discord. That is what's happening. Like that, people are kind of like playing with these guys. Still got my home group, good people, but my home group's also kind of stuck in this one game that they always want to play, which I'm totally fine running, right? Like, I like running it, I love playing in it, but I want to try some other things. And my game group's just never wanting to do that. So then they come on and play like a short campaign to see what Forbidden Lands is about, or Warlock, or whatever. And then they're like, ooh, okay. And then they start forming up a little more concretely. Now, if you're not big on playing online, well, that shit's going to come to a halt. But man, putting up with, shouldn't say putting up with, playing in a group you're not meshing with. But people torture the hell out of themselves sometimes. It's like just a certain preference is all. Could still talk about the same hobby. Like Doc and Jimmy and Josh and Crystal, good friends here. And I played face-to-face with them for a long time, on and off. And, I'm not interested in playing Shadowrun right now. If I came back to them and said, hey, you got room at the table, I'm coming back, what are you guys playing now? Or they changed it up or something, I'd probably be able to squeeze right in there. They know who I am. They know how I like the style. and it would be fine. Like, there's no love lost there, right? It's not personal. It's just like, hey, I'm going to go and do this thing for a little while. And then, and I offered them, like, hey, you guys want to come over and play Forbidden Lands for a little while? It's up to you. We're going to play Shadowrun. That's cool. And they are all good with each other. Like, they all mesh and everything. And I don't, it's not that I don't mesh necessarily. It's just the game I'm not really wanting to play right now. And I've played it before. I don't have a problem with Shadowrun. But, I'm kind of stoked to play 5th edition because I love 5th edition. I've always loved it. I think it's the greatest D&D game ever. So I should probably fire up, good old 5th edition soon. We'll see. Kai Rise, I found when I stopped regularly DMing for a while, then that was when people became hungry to play. Don't always be on tap for a group that isn't invested. Scarcity is value. Yeah. The fallout with the Curse of Strahd guys, which is like my buddy Jeff, Joe, and Andy, there was lots of things that were kind of like crumbling, and it's the follow-up part. And my goal is my buddy Jeff, to get in the weeds, is he's trying to finish his MBA. So he's got limited time himself. And I said, when do you get done? And he's like, May. I'm done in May. And I'm like, fantastic. Let's start an every other week game. Because then it goes back to like, I don't have to plan. I don't have to hit you guys up because it's gonna be every other Tuesday. So I don't need to figure out like, when are we playing this month? Or, hey, what are we doing? When are we playing? And then not hearing anything. So that gets removed. So that's what I'm kind of hoping that will happen, but I don't know. But those guys have their own thing going on. Like, somebody else, like, all right, Sean's out of here, screw him. I'm going to Dungeon Master, and we're going to run Avernus, and I think it's going, I don't know, maybe okay for them. So, yeah. Act like you don't like her. Yeah. It's so easy to find people on Roll20. I just don't like running online. When we finally get face-to-face again, there was just no going back for me. Yeah. Meanwhile, I don't mind online. I'd like to stream more, actually. Stream more games. I want to do more 2-hour, 2.5-hour, 1 3-hour game. Like, yeah, there's some things I'm trying to get through my brain. I thought it was going to be hard to find good games online, but then I came to Gaming and BS Discord. Noobus, you're killing me, buddy. Great intro on the last episode, too. That's coming out, guys. I got it in the hopper. Yeah. Out great Discord. You can even find people on Roll20 forums, which I loved it face to face. Yeah. 5e lies. Yeah, so Forbidden Lands I have this week. The group goes into the Goblin Cave, or maybe they don't. We'll see. That's fun. John Sidewinder knows the deal. And then the following week we pick up with one will be officially have gone a month, as those guys have gone through the portal. So we'll see where that goes. One of the things though, will be session 3 for the Forbidden Lands Wednesday group. After that, I have to start making plans for the next game I want to run, and I think I'm going to stream it. I may not stream it, but I may record it, and then I'll put it out. And it'll be probably a limited run, probably 4 to 5 sessions. I don't know what game or who might be interested in it. I don't know if it's going to be Forbidden Lands again. I did leave some Forbidden Lands players that wanted to experience it behind because of scheduling and alignment. So we'll see. We'll see. I do want to run Feng Shui. And maybe I'll do one-shots. I don't know. Maybe I do 4 one-shots in a row. Be every other week. Like, hey, this week's going to be Feng Shui. Who's in? Record it, put it on the channel for people to see. Maybe it's Vaesen or whatever. Who knows? Got a lot of games I could probably play and put out there. Yeah. There you go. I'm going to wrap it up. So if you found any value in this video at all, give me a thumbs up. And if you don't, give me a thumbs down. I think the algorithm doesn't mind either one, honestly, because you're interacting. If you want to be notified of these things going live in the future, or when I drop a different video, subscribe. It'll probably let you know. If you get the bell enabled. Otherwise, I have a episode I have to edit for Gaming and BS to be put out. That'll drop. I think I can still get it out and drop it today. And then the future of Gaming and BS may change a little bit of its format. It may get into, we run an encounter of some game or a one shot or a 1 hour game and narrate why we're doing the things that we're doing. To give kind of again, going into that game master insight piece, right? Getting into the brain of a game master and their decision-making process. Why are they having them roll? Why are they having them roll that? We'll see. I don't know how the format's going to come off, especially in audio. But there's APs that do audio, and I don't think you need visual, right? We got theater of the mind. So we'll see about that. I think that's kind of it for announcements or what's going on or what's coming up in the future. If you like to hang out with some good folks, I encourage you to stop by the Gaming and BS Discord. You could find that by going to gamingandbs.com/Discord and hang out. Lurk if you want. There's good conversation. There's room for opinions. We're not big on bashing other systems. We can have preferences, but it's I like the community. Most of you are a part of it. Thank you for being there. And thanks for showing up today. I really appreciate it. It's always fun interacting with you guys. You guys always have something interesting to say, and helps me going. Puts fuel in my tank. So I appreciate it. I really genuinely like getting up on Saturday mornings at the ass crack of dawn my time and talking about some of this stuff. So if you have suggestions, even for these morning kind of format shows, let me know. I like kind of go into some highlights I've come across the week, put those out, and then maybe find something a little bit more kind of a main topic, whatever that is, and talk through that a little bit. But I'm open. I'm flexible. Getting less flexible because I'm getting older physically, but physically less flexible. But it's good. If you're getting older, flexibility is key. Anyways, take care, guys, and remember, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby.